Film star Bruce Willis on rolling with the tabloid punches.
I've accepted the fact that my private life is viewed as public entertainment for the masses.
And the debate on steroids in baseball with Players Union Chief Don Fear.
If you won't allow me to do a search of you, whether it's your house or your car or your pockets or your blood or your urine or your hair, that you must be guilty. That's not the way this country works.
He's won the Pulitzer Prize and even was named a United Nations Messenger of Peace. Jazz artist supreme, Wynton Marsalis. Okay, welcome again to On the Record. Ahead, we'll do some improvising with Marsalis and talk steroids with Fear. We'll start, though, with a film star with more talent and versatility than perhaps he gets credit for. Bruce Willis originally achieved stardom in 1984 when he beat out a raft of other auditioning actors to get the starring role opposite Sybil Shepherd in the TV comedy Moonlighting. 4 years later, Willis was able to adapt his insouciant TV persona to the action genre on the big screen in the mega hit Die Hard, which spawned 2 sequels and made Willis one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Willis's credits include impressive turns in films like Pulp Fiction, The Sixth Sense, and opposite Paul Newman in Nobody's Fool. But it's the action stuff and the wise guy comedies for which he's best known. This weekend, his latest such work, The Whole 10 Yards, hits the screens. In it, Willis reprises his role as Jimmy the Tulip Tedeschi, the mob hitman turned government informant, which he originated in the 2000 hit entitled, now try and keep up here, The Whole 9 Yards.
Every red-blooded American knows that the only condiment you are ever supposed to put on a hamburger
is ketchup! Or maybe some of that special sauce you like so much here in Canada, which I think has a little bit of mayonnaise in it, too. But I swear to God, when they start slapping that mayonnaise on there, I could kill somebody.
So here is Bruce Willis, and we just saw the clip from The Whole 9 Yards, and then I imagine a bunch of studio executives got together and brainstormed endlessly to come up with a title for the sequel.
No one wanted to go to 10. We wanted the cast, the director, all wanted to jump to whole 14 yards. Confused we want the audience confused. I think that our whole goal was just to make you laugh, just to crack you up. We realized in the first couple days of shooting of whole 10 yards that we could get away with anything.
I thought I married a contract killer, not Martha Stewart.
I got an idea. Why don't we go out and kill somebody tonight? Just the 2 of us.
Wow.
Now, speaking of sequels, since The Whole 10 Yards is now rolling out, and this seems to be very popular, will there be a Die Hard 4?
That's what they say. That's what they're telling me. Fox has been working on a script. I've said that if they get the ending worked out, I would do it. What I plan on doing, Bob, is, because so much time is, gone by since Die Hard 3, is I'm going to play the character on one of those little, what do they call them, rascals?
Little scooter thing?
Little scooter, and I chase all the bad guys on it. It's a revved up rascal. It does about 95 miles an hour.
Oh, God, please don't let me die.
How good a bartender were you?
I was a good bartender. Wasn't too chatty. A lot of at that time film stars would come in there, and I made it a point not to bug them.
So you're tending bar, you're doing the occasional stage work, and you're one of hundreds of people who auditioned for the role of David Addison.
Thousands.
Thousands in Moonlighting.
Thank you.
It's kind of a legendary audition. What'd you do?
I just behaved as if I didn't want the job. Went in and just had my, don't give a shit attitude. And said, hey, how you doing? Okay, great. Ready? Here we go. Read it, do the thing, and I say, great, thanks very much, and walk out. And they came chasing after me, and they said, oh, that was good. We want you to come back and stick around. People couldn't believe that I would say no to that show, but there was a moment where I almost made the biggest mistake of my life.
You're looking great, kid. I'm right behind you. Now don't look back and try and see me. Just know that I'm right in back of you, and yes, I am looking up your dress.
We did some pretty wild things the first couple of years of that show. And then descended into the 7th level of hell. for the last 2 years.
Because of turmoil and
There was some
conflict
turmoil.
between you and Sybil
There was some
Shepherd,
turmoil.
supposedly?
Well, supposedly, allegedly.
You know what's really amazing? From the TV commercials and posters and billboards and all that stuff, you never guess what a cold bitch you are.
And we began to repeat ourselves and kind of do the same jokes. And there was some strife, there was some turmoil.
As you look back on it now, though, I would guess that whatever may have annoyed you at the time, through the rearview mirror, you got a much more mellow outlook on it. It was a big success.
Yeah.
It helped you hone your comic timing, and it was a very good television show for its time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was the most exciting time of my career.
Addison. Addison, why is he doing that?
Gravity? Boy, that's gotta hurt, falling on your nose like that.
If you hadn't been so openly dismissive of the press, especially the tabloid press,
Yes.
do you think you would have gotten better reviews in some instances, or do you think there's no crossover from that kind of celebrity coverage and reviews?
I didn't understand the power of, not the press as much as the tabloids. When you say fuck you on a continual basis to the press or the tabloids and say leave me alone and I'm entitled to some privacy in my life, you're just asking for trouble. You're not gonna make friends. I've since, given up on all that and have accepted the fact that my private life is viewed as public entertainment for the masses. And it's just not a big deal to me anymore. I don't pay any attention to it. But when I was first starting out, I'm from South Jersey, and I just can't get it out of myself. I can't get that South Jersey thing out of me.
If somebody crosses you, that there has to be a response.
You know what? And in this day and age, a good old-fashioned South Jersey ass whooping is just fellas, am I right? Don't you just want to whoop somebody's ass every now and again? But you can't do it. You can't smack anybody around.
Well, if you did it, even if you were provoked, you're out $1 million easy just in the settlement.
Easy.
Just to make the guy go away.
Court. Yeah. And there's a show on TV, apparently, that is about the paparazzi.
Yeah, it's on E.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's on E.
Great. E? Fuck you. How's that?
Did you ever really come close to popping a member of the paparazzi or a reporter or picking up the phone and reading the riot act to somebody?
I almost ran a couple photographers down one time when Demi was pregnant with our first child. They had caused her to fall when she was pregnant, and I just went nuts. Didn't hit anybody, didn't run anyone down, but it was close.
For all the successes you've had, what's it like to be in a flop?
I think I've learned way more from the bombs that I've been involved with than any success I've ever had. And I take responsibility for the films that turn out well and the films that suck, and a lot of them did.
Which ones sucked? Which is not necessarily the same thing as failing.
Let's see. Well, there was a movie that was done that I did. It was originally called Three Rivers. They changed the title to Striking Distance. That one sucked. That was really pathetic. But if it weren't for that film, I wouldn't have said never again will I let myself be put in this position.
So now a week like this, the whole 10 yards opening up, certainly your financial future doesn't depend on it, and chances are, even if it doesn't do as well as you hope, there's still plenty of fine roles waiting for you down the road. But do you still feel some butterflies? Are you still awaiting the reviews and the first weekend's box office?
No, I think that films like this that are really done just to make people laugh generally get mixed reviews. If people laugh, if I'm, people come up to me and say, wow, I really laughed at Whole 10 Yards, or you guys are really funny, you really made me laugh at that. That's the reward.
Good luck with it.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks
It's great
for coming
talking. I'm a big fan.
Thank
Really,
you,
man.
Thank you.
Really.
My pleasure. good to have Bruce Willis here, and Wynton Marsalis is coming up shortly. But first, some thoughts off the cuff. In 1934, the legendary Bobby Jones decided he wanted to host a tournament near his home in Georgia, and the event now known as the Masters was born. Since then, Augusta National has become America's most hallowed golf venue, and its most visibly exclusive. Last year, of course, this exclusivity was assaulted by a loud, passionate, and ultimately unsuccessful effort to get Augusta to reverse its rules prohibiting female membership. In the tournament's 70 years, the game of golf has changed dramatically. Further, in recent years, it's been touched by a trend permeating the entire sports landscape. It's getting younger. Like basketball's LeBron James and soccer's Freddie Adu, 14-year-old LPGA phenom Michelle Wie has established herself as a star in her sport. The emergence of Wie, a high school freshman who crushes 300-yard drives, has made it no longer unreasonable to suggest that a woman may one day occupy a spot on the Augusta leaderboard. Maybe before she's allowed to occupy a locker in the members' clubhouse. So just a note off the cuff to Hootie Johnson and company. Your justifiable disdain for Martha Burke's heavy-handed and overwrought attempt to change Augusta is one thing, but the evolving state of the game and our country is another. Someday, Michelle Wie might make the turn at Amen Corner, maybe even march up the fabled 18th fairway and slip into a green jacket. Here's hoping that if and when it happens, she'll do so knowing that Augusta's female members are the ones who are cheering the loudest. Okay, early April is typically a strong few weeks in sports, and this year, as Tiger looks to get himself back on track at Augusta and UConn Hoops fans celebrate their unprecedented twin titles, baseball begins its season this week under a cloud of suspicion from the media, fans, and Congress.
Using a performance-enhancing substance to gain a competitive edge over an opponent is cheating. Sports organizations that allow athletes to cheat through weak drug testing regimes are aiding and abetting cheaters.
I'm committed to the idea that baseball must have a program on performance-enhancing substances that is consistent with accepted international standards for sports so that we can remove the cloud that fairly or unfairly has been cast over our sport and its athletes.
Excerpts from last month's congressional hearings. For years, some of us have openly questioned the correlation between players' increasingly bulging muscles and escalating home run totals. But with the investigation of a steroids distribution ring involving the Balco lab in California and subsequent subpoenas of several prominent players, plus the announcement that 5 to 7% of players tested positive for illegal steroids last year, concern about the use of performance-enhancing drugs in baseball is now a front-burner issue. Donald Fehr is the executive director of the Players Union, and he joins me now. Given the fact that there's increased focus on this issue, the press, fans, Congress, what's the likelihood that this issue will be reopened?
Well, the bargaining agreement that we reached has a number of provisions in it which call for sort of automatic reanalysis and reinvestigation of what you're doing. The most recent example of which was, once it was confirmed chemically that THG, which was involved in the San Francisco matter, was a chemical that has steroidal properties, that was added to the list. It'll be tested for. It would not surprise me if there are other changes that take place. Specifically, one is, if indeed androstenedione becomes unlawful to obtain in the United States, which is distinctly possible now given the action of the Department of Health and Human Services, then that will be considered a prohibited substance and tested for also.
Without oversimplifying, cork is not an illegal substance, neither is saliva. But baseball legislates against how it's used because you can use it to cheat. So why should baseball have to wait for andro or any other substance that might make the playing field unlevel? Why should they have to wait for the government to act? Why can't they just take their own action?
It's not a question of waiting for the government to act. It's a question of whether or not you tell an individual that we're going to ban the use of a given substance and we're going to invade your privacy and test you for it all the time on an ongoing basis. I think it's really important to go back to some basics. And I don't mean basics about baseball. I mean basics about how the country is supposed to work. We don't assume guilt. We don't assume guilt by association. We don't assume that an individual is required to prove himself innocent of something about which there's no evidence. We don't assume that the appropriate way to conduct our business is to say, if you won't allow me to do a search of you, whether it's your house or your car or your pockets or your blood or your urine or your hair, that you must be guilty. That's not the way this country works.
I spoke earlier this week with Graham Boyd, who's the National Director of Drug Policy for the American Civil Liberties Union. To paraphrase what he told me, he said, this is not a Fourth Amendment issue because it doesn't involve governmental action. So the question of unreasonable search and seizure is at best abstract here. But also, he made a distinction between unreasonable invasions of privacy to test for so-called street drugs, cocaine, marijuana, whatever, that do not directly impact the competitive integrity of baseball. He likened testing for performance-enhancing drugs more to testing for cork in a bat or scuffing a baseball. He said this is a cheating issue, and as long as the drug testing is administered fairly and honestly, that he did not see it as a privacy issue or a civil liberties issue.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I don't know whether he's ever studied it. He certainly never talked to us,